theory class. So it is actually not practical because you cannot do, but I will try to make you feel that you are there in the laboratory and you are doing some practical work. So today's practical is total nitrogen in plant samples. So actually there are a number of practicals on nitrogen. Nitrogen concentration in plants or plant parts, maybe in grain, maybe in straw. And similarly, nitrogen content, total nitrogen content in soil. And also you have available nitrogen in soil. And in available nitrogen, you have two different parts. One is readily oxidizable nitrogen and other is mineral nitrogen. So, but here today we are going to discuss just total nitrogen in plant samples, and it is being done by Geldahl method. Geldahl method, you must have listened this name. So objective of this practical is to determine total nitrogen in plant samples, whether it is grain or straw or maybe simply dry matter. The role of nitrogen in plant growth, we will discuss in brief what kind of role nitrogen plays in plant growth and relationship between total Geldahl nitrogen and crude protein content. And besides this, I would also touch upon certain aspects related to nitrogen availability in soil. Now, so far, Geldahl method, you can remember the name of the method is Geldahl method, Kjeldahl. Please remember this spelling. This is usually asked from the student. Tell me the spelling of Geldahl, Kjeldahl. So what is the principle of Geldahl method of total nitrogen analysis in plant sample? So principle is very simple. It is in three parts. First part of the principle is that organic nitrogen is converted into ammonical form. All kind of nitrogen, whatever is there in the plant samples, is converted into ammonical form, ammonium form, by using concentrated sulfuric acid and containing potassium sulfate or sodium sulfate that promote this conversion. So this is first principle of total nitrogen analysis. And once your nitrogen has come in ammonical form, it is ammonium sulfate. So whatever nitrogen was there in the plant sample has been converted into ammonium sulfate. And this ammonical nitrogen is determined from the amount of ammonia liberated by distillation of the digest with an alkali. Means now you will distillate, you will evaporate this ammonia in the form of ammonium sulfate into NH3. And then you will absorb it in the boric acid, and then ammonia absorbed in boric acid containing mixed indicator is determined with a standard acid. That is titration part of boric acid mixed indicator with ammonia changes back to pink or red color at the end point of titration. So this is very simple. Try to understand it. There are three principles. One is related to digestion, where your nitrogen, organic nitrogen, is converted into inorganic nitrogen. Organic nitrogen means your proteins, RNA, DNA are converted into ammonium sulfate by sulfuric acid in the presence of potassium sulfate or sodium sulfate. You can take either of these it acts as a just as a catalyst. And then the ammonium sulfate is reacted with alkali to produce ammonia. This is known as distillation. This ammonium sulfate is reacted with alkali, which is sodium hydroxide, and it releases ammonia. And this ammonia is absorbed in boric acid. This is your distillation part. Third thing is titration. Now you want to know how much nitrogen is there, which has been absorbed in the boric acid. Then you titrate it against 0.1 normal or 0.01 normal sulfuric acid. So you determine the nitrogen percent or total nitrogen in the sample, plant sample. Now it is interesting, you will see what are the reagents and how we do it in the subsequent slides. But here you can see interesting thing is that when ammonia in the beginning, when you make the boric acid solution, so boric acid solution is used to absorb the ammonia. And this boric acid solution contains your mixed indicator, and this mixed indicator gives the color red or pink kind of color, between pinkish and red color of boric acid. But when the ammonia is absorbed into it, it converts to bluish green color. It converts to bluish green color. Then you have ammonia in the boric acid, which is bluish green in color, and then you go for titration with zero point 0.1 normal sulfuric acid or 0.5, whatever you take, and then you get back again the pink color. So this is how these color changes during distillation and titration. Now you see this is a very simple picture. In the first picture you see Geldal flask. Geldal flask, it has very long neck. Long neck, why it is famous? Why the name Geldal is famous? Because in this case, when you do boiling, the contents will not come out of it. They will remain inside it because it is having very long neck. So this is Geldal flask. Normally it comes in 500 ml or 750 ml, 1 liter or 2 liter sizes. And in laboratory, normally we use 600 or 750 ml Geldal flask. So in this Geldal flask, you put your plant sample and put some acids, sulfuric acid into it, and then you boil it. Boil it, and after some time, your sample will be digested. I will tell you the exact procedure after 1 or 2 slides, how it is done. So what happens during this acid will react to the organic material and it will convert into ammonium sulfate. So it will take about 1.5 hours time at least. So your digestion is done where your ammonia nitrogen is in ammonical form. After digestion, now the second is distillation. In distillation, there are number of variety of options available. Sometimes you get 8 or 10 Geldal flasks or heaters in a series. Sometimes you have just one system. So suppose it is just one system, one unit for distillation. So in this case, you see, you need to have some source of energy or uh, source of heat. So here you got some burner may be there, a heater may be there, whatever it is to boil it. And then you have one flask or rather same flask. You can get the same flask, Geldal flask, you put it here, and Geldal flask is connected to the boric acid. You see, or yellow color. It is shown yellow color, but it is pink color, pink or red color. So in between, you see there is a condenser. There is a condenser is seen. And in this case, your Geldal flask contains your ammonium sulfate and all the contents. And now you put some sodium hydroxide. And this sodium hydroxide will immediately release ammonia. And that ammonia will start running from this flask into the boric acid. And then in the meantime, it will also be having some water vapor, and water vapor will make ammonium hydroxide. So into the beaker, ammonium hydroxide will fall into the beaker. It will not be ammonia because ammonia will mix with the water and ammonium hydroxide will fall in the boric acid. So this is how this distillation works. Distillation means you are just making ammonia and collecting it into the boric acid. And the third step is titration. Now you want to know what exactly is the amount of nitrogen in the boric acid. Then you can do it by titration and you can note down the quantity of sulfuric acid or titrant. We call it titrant. Say it may be 10 ml, it may be 2 ml, 5 ml. So you need to note down how much acid has been consumed to get the end point. End point means here color change because mixed indicator is there. So this is digestion, distillation, titration. This is just introduction. You will get more on this subject, more clarity. Now let us see what are the reagents that are used for total analysis of nitrogen in plant samples. So first is catalyst mixture, or it is also called as digestion accelerator. So to prepare it, you need to take two things. One is 10 gram anhydrous sodium sulfate, or you can also take potassium sulfate. So 10 gram is anhydrous sodium sulfate. Anhydrous means there is no water. There is no water in it. If water is there, the reactivity of the compound decreases. So sodium sulfate and 1 gram pure dry copper sulfate pentahydrate. So here you take in the ratio of 10 is to 1, and this quantity per sample is required. Now mixed indicator, how to prepare the mixed indicator? 0.1 gram bromocresol green. This is a chemical, this is a compound which acts as indicator. So 0.1 gram bromocresol green plus 0.07 gram methyl red indicator. So this is the ratio in 100 ml of 95% ethyl alcohol. So you need to take ethyl alcohol, that is a 95% concentration, and quantity is 100 ml, and put 0.1 gram bromocresol green and 0.07 gram methyl red indicator. So it is usually asked from the student, what is mixed indicator? So at least we can remember that it is made up of bromocresol green and methyl red. Methyl red is quite common indicator in the laboratories. Next is boric acid solution. It is required to absorb ammonia. So 4%, to make 4% boric acid solution, take 40 gram of boric acid per liter of distilled water. Means take 40 gram and make up the volume to 1 liter. So you will get 4% boric acid solution. And into this, you add 5 ml mixed indicator extra over it, added to each liter of boric acid solution. So this is how these reagents are prepared. And next is your sodium hydroxide solution, which is used for distillation. It reacts with ammonium hydroxide. So to prepare sodium hydroxide, you need to have 40% solution. 40% solution means 40 gram per liter of solution. So 40% NOS solution using nitrogen-free sodium hydroxide flakes. Flakes should be allowed to stand for 24 to 48 hours. So it is exothermic reaction. Exothermic reaction. You need to be very, very careful in handling sodium hydroxide. It burns your skin. It is very dangerous chemical. So when you prepare it, it gives out lot of heat. So you need to be careful. And it takes a lot of time to cool it down. So never use freshly prepared. At least 1 day in advance, you need to prepare sodium hydroxide. It can never be used fresh. So later on, some impurities will also precipitate when you keep it for 24 to 48 hours. So you can use after 24 to 48 hours the sodium hydroxide. Then you also need concentrated sulfuric acid to break down the organic matter for mineralization or decomposition of organic matter. And specific gravity should be 1.84. And these two compounds, blue color, salicylic acid and sodium thiosulfate, these two chemicals are required only in case of total analysis in soil. When you are analyzing total nitrogen in soil, you need to use salicylic acid and sodium thiosulfate. And these two chemicals are not used in plant nitrogen analysis. Total analysis in plant sample, these two chemicals are not used. They are used only for total nitrogen analysis in soil. And you also need to have a titrant for titration purpose. You need to prepare 0.1 normal H2SO4. And by now you understand very well that how this 0.1 normal H2SO4 can be prepared. Now, procedure, how to do it. So there are 3 steps: digestion, distillation, and titration. So in digestion, what you need to do in case of plant, take 0.25 to 0.5 gram. It's your choice. If you think that nitrogen concentration in plant material is very high, then you take less quantity of sample, take 0.25 or even 0.1 gram. Or if you think that nitrogen concentration is low, then you can take 0.5 gram also. So depending upon nitrogen concentration in the material, you can choose the size of the sample. And it should be finely ground plant sample to pass through 40 mesh sieve in a piece of butter paper. So you do the weighing on the electronic balance. Electronic balance give you more accurate weight, and then transfer it to 500 ml Geldal flask with the wrapper also. Because wrapper does not have anything, this butter paper. So butter paper plus your this finely ground plant sample, you insert it, put it into the Geldal flask. Now add 25 ml of concentrated sulfuric acid. Next is allow to stand. Just wait because it will also release some heat. So just let the things cool down. And in this case, if you are going to analyze nitrate and nitrite, if you are having soil sample, that is the only difference. If you have soil samples, and in soil samples you want to analyze total nitrogen. So total nitrogen includes your nitrogen in organic material and nitrogen in inorganic. Inorganic plus organic nitrogen. So in this case, inorganic nitrogen, you have ammonium, ammonical form and nitrate form. So this nitrate needs to be converted into ammonium. This nitrate is required to be converted into ammonium. So to convert this nitrate into ammonium, you need these two chemicals, which is your sodium thiosulfate and salicylic acid are required. So if nitrate and nitrites are to be included, sulfuric acid added should contain 1 gram salicylic acid per 25 ml sulfuric acid. So you put your salicylic acid into sulfuric acid and allow to stand for 30 minutes and then add 5 grams sodium thiosulfate. So this is for soil samples. Now, what you need to do after adding the sulfuric acid, again allow to stand for 30 minutes. Add a catalyst mixture. After 30 minutes, add catalyst mixture and heat Geldal flask first slowly till frothing continues, and after that heat it briskly. Means you added sulfuric acid, then for 30 minutes you waited it, and after that you can start heating it. You can digest it, and it may take about 1 hour time, approximately 1 hour time after this. And then you cool down it, let us cool it and add 150 ml of water carefully. So after cooling, you can add 150 ml of water. So in this case, how to find that our sample has been digested? So there should not be any impurity. Any impurity should not be there in the flask, in the Geldal flask. It should be very clean, clean digest. So it comes with experience. So people know when it is digested. There should not be any kind of organic matter or plant sample particle should not be visible. It should be totally solution. It should look like a solution you digest. So whatever you are getting after the digestion in the Geldal flask, it is also called as plant digest. We also call it plant digest, means the thing which we received after digestion is digest. So now you have seen the procedure of digestion. So do you have any question on this? Digestion.
So the water vapor is also transferred to Geldal flux.
Yes, sir?
So that the water paper
Yeah.
is it
Butter
also
paper, yeah,
Geldal flux?
because it is inserted into the Geldal flask for the convenience, because there is no way we can put your plant sample into the bottom of the Geldal flask. So it should reach the bottom, and if we do not use it covered in the butter paper, then it will stick to the neck. The part of the sample, the whole sample may not reach the bottom of the Geldal flask because you are going to use acid. So that will stick to the neck part, and that will not be part of the digestion. So we fear like this. Thereby, we use butter paper. and it is just carbon. Butter paper is simply carbon. It will not affect your analysis. Thing is that it should not be contaminated. It should not have any kind of contamination. Then we can use butter paper. Normally we use it. So this procedure is clear to everyone. Mrinal, are you okay with the procedure, this procedure?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now we come to the next part, which is distillation, and third part is titration. So in distillation, what you need to do, add whatever digest was there in the Geldal flask, the same is used, and in this you have already added 150 ml of water. So now what you need to do, add 120 ml of 40% sodium hydroxide solution. So this sodium hydroxide solution is added, and immediately you need to start the distillation system. So this should not be exposed free, because ammonia will immediately start coming out. So you need to connect it. You need to put something onto it, so that ammonia is not going out. So you need to immediately connect it to the distillation unit. Just you have put sodium hydroxide, and immediately you need to connect it to the distillation assembly, so that no ammonia is going out. So sodium solution along the sides of the jar. Now you need to add few of glass, small and solid pieces of glass, so that it avoids the bumping of the contents in the flask. When you boil it, and you have already put sodium hydroxide, so lot of bumping will be there. So to avoid it, if you have glass beads, bumping can be avoided. So immediately connect to distillation bulb in the distillation unit. Now, what happens? This ammonia will be released, and it will be passing through the condenser, where it will cool down and it will enter into the boric acid. So now collect ammonia evolved 25 ml boric acid mixed indicator solution. So at the other end, you are collecting ammonia in boric acid. So boric acid is to be taken in a conical flask, where you need to take about 25 ml of boric acid mixed indicator. And distillation should continue till 150 ml distillate is collected. So now how will you know that whole ammonia has been released from the Geldal flask, and it has been collected in the boric acid? How will you know it? So one formula to know it is that when your distillate, or when the size of the conical flask of boric acid becomes 150 ml, so that is the time when you can consider that no more ammonia will come, or whatever ammonia was there has come into the conical flask, has come into the boric acid. So this is one way. Other way is to use litmus paper. One can use litmus paper. See the right side of the slide. And your blue litmus paper, if you have acid, if you put acid on the blue litmus paper, it converts it to red color. And if you have red litmus paper and you put some base onto it, it converts to blue color. So it is very easy to remember, because you see blue litmus paper, red litmus paper. In blue litmus paper, B comes first. So these are in alphabetical order. B and R. R is red litmus paper. On the other side, you have red color, blue color, or you have acid and base. So in acid, alphabetically, A comes first and B comes later. So acid base. So it is easy to remember BRAB. Blue litmus paper, in the acid will convert it into red, and base will convert red litmus paper into blue color. So in this case, ammonia is basic in nature. It is a weak base. Ammonia is considered as a weak base. So it is a base. It is alkaline in nature. And when you use red litmus paper, if it is converted to blue color, that means ammonia is still present. Ammonia is still coming to the boric acid. Therefore, let us continue it for some more time. If it does not change the color, if it does not change the color from red to blue, that means your ammonia is not there. So you can stop your distillation. So this is how one can use litmus paper to see whether ammonia has been completely distilled or not. So if no color change, ammonia is completely volatilized and no more ammonia is left for distillation. So is this point clear to everyone?
Yes, sir.
Chinali, where are you? Chinali,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It is clear.
is it okay? Okay.
Yes, sir. It is clear.
What about Wahid? Wahid, is it clear?
Yes, sir. It is clear. It was
Good.
very,
Now
very
your distillation is over. Now the third
Hello,
and
sir.
final is, yes.
Sir, can we use liquid paraffin here, or it is used only in available nitrogen to reduce frothing?
Yeah, we can use that also here. Yes.
Okay, sir.
Now we go for titration. So titrate ammonia evolved against standard sulfuric acid. So standard sulfuric acid is zero point 0.1 normal, and it depends that what concentration of sulfuric acid I should have. If you have higher, if you expect that it will have some high concentration of nitrogen in the plant material, it is leguminous material, then you can go up to 0.5 normal or zero point 0.2 normal, 0.3 normal, whatever you like. Because in calculations, your normality will be adjusted. So no issue. And if you think that nitrogen percentage is very low and you want more accurate readings, then you can reduce the strength. Even you can take 0.001 normal solution. That will give you more accuracy. Means lower the strength of the standard, higher is the precision, higher is the accuracy. If you have higher strength of the standard solution, say if you have 1 normal, 0.5 normal, then accuracy will be less because here the division of units is very large, meaning is very large. So titrate ammonia evolved against standard sulfuric acid and run a blank simultaneously also with a piece of paper. That butter paper you can take in a blank, means without plant sample. So in such analysis, one blank is always there, where you put all the chemicals or everything what you put in the plant sample, except sample is not there. Therefore, it is blank sample. And same quantity of reagents are added. So now you can see back this picture. Digestion was done, distillation was done, and then you go for titration. Here, titration is done in burette. So burette is not shown actually here. So, but you do normally this titration with the help of burette. Now see, the most important part is calculations. So I have used some colors to make things more clear to you. So now you know what was the weight of the sample of the plant. You know it. And now you want to know what is the weight of the nitrogen in this plant sample. Because weight of the sample is in gram. So I should know what is the weight of nitrogen in this sample. So to calculate weight of nitrogen in this plant sample in gram, what can be done? So you see, amount of nitrogen in the plant sample, which is represented by S, yellow color, S, ml of acid used for sample minus ml means volume of acid used for blank, into normality of acid into 14 into 10 to the power minus 3. So here the meaning of everything is explained here. Now reading of blank is subtracted from the reading of the sample just to overcome the errors or some mixing in the chemicals. To avoid that, we take blank samples. So error is minimized by using this. So now we know how much acid is consumed to neutralize the nitrogen in the sample. And then we know the volume and we know the normality. Normality was 0.1. So if we multiply this volume by normality of the acid, we get milli-equivalents. We get compounds or nitrogen in milli-equivalents. And then milli-equivalent multiplied by equivalent weight of nitrogen, which is 14. So you get milligram. Now you get milligram of nitrogen. And if you divide it by 1000, you get gram. That is why it is written multiplied by 10 to the power minus 3. So now you get in gram. Now you know how many grams of nitrogen is there in the boric acid. I repeat, amount of nitrogen in the sample, which is represented by S, ml of acid used for sample minus ml of acid used for blank into normality into 14 into 10 to the power minus 3. So you can subtract the blank readings from the sample reading multiplied by normality. So if you multiply the volume of the acid used by normality, you get milli-equivalents. And these milli-equivalents of the substances multiplied by equivalent weight, which is 14 for nitrogen. Then you get milligram. And milligram divided by 1000, you get gram. So many grams of nitrogen was there in the sample. Now you want to know the percentage. Now you know weight of the sample, you know weight of the nitrogen in the sample. So nitrogen in sample, see the last line, nitrogen in the sample S into 100 divided by sample weight in gram. So by this formula, you can get the nitrogen percentage in the sample. So this is calculation. So any problem in this calculation?
No, sir.
It is fine. Mukesh? Yeah, is it okay? This clear to you?
Sir, clear.
Okay. Now we go to the reactions. You have seen we have added some chemicals and we have destroyed the organic matter and converted it into ammonical form. And if it is soil, then we need to convert nitrate into ammonium. So how it is done? So you can see all these reactions, they are very, very important for students. So suppose you are doing total analysis in soil. So as I told you, you need to have salicylic acid and sodium thiosulfate, two extra materials. So salicylic acid reacts with the HNO3. This HNO3 is actually nitrate in the soil. Nitrate is not free. So nitrate may be with the HNO3, with the hydrogen. So HNO3 means this is nitrate in the soil, and nitrate in the soil will react with the salicylic acid. And your soil is there in the Geldal flask. In the Geldal flask, your soil is there. In that soil, you have nitrate, and this nitrate will react with salicylic acid. And this salicylic acid was mixed with the sulfuric acid. Sulfuric acid contains salicylic acid. Already you made this reagent. So it converts nitrate into nitrosalicylic acid. So nitrosalicylic acid is formed. And you also have another chemical, sodium thiosulfate. So simultaneously, side by side, sodium thiosulfate Na2S2O3 will react with sulfuric acid, which is there in the sample. And then it will form sodium sulfate and thiosulfonic acid. Sodium sulfate and thiosulfonic acid. Now this nitrosalicylic acid and thiosulfonic acid will react with each other and they will form aminosalicylic acid. So you can see nitrosalicylic acid in the third reaction. Nitrosalicylic acid reacts with thiosulfonic acid in the presence of water and it converts nitrate into amino form, which is aminosalicylic acid. Now you see this nitrate has been reduced to amino form, NH2. And this aminosalicylic acid will react further with sulfuric acid. Aminosalicylic acid will react with sulfuric acid and it will convert it into ammonium sulfate. So you can see in the soil, this salicylic acid and your sodium thiosulfate, they have converted nitrate into ammonium sulfate in the presence of sulfuric acid. So now your all nitrogen for soil, total soil nitrogen, your every part of the nitrogen is in ammonium sulfate form. Now, suppose you are going for plant sample only, just plant sample is there, or in the soil sample you have organic matter. You have organic matter in the soil sample, and in the plant sample also you have organic matter. And this organic matter is decomposed by sulfuric acid. So you can see this glucose C6H12O6. This represent your organic matter. So organic matter, sulfuric acid, it is broken down into carbon dioxide, water, and sulfur dioxide. So it is in the solution, means your kind of ashing, your material will come into the solution. Now, next is your distillation. What happens in distillation? So in distillation, this is not distillation, sorry. This is just trapping ammonium. Now you have seen how this nitrate was converted into ammonium sulfate or ammonium form. In soil, you also have ammonium, which is part of the mineral nitrogen. So this ammonium, suppose it is ammonium hydroxide, then ammonium hydroxide will react with sulfuric acid and it will directly form ammonium sulfate. Now, digestion of amino acids, because organic material will also have nitrogenous compounds like proteins or amino acid, whatever it is. So RCOONH2 plus sulfuric acid plus H2, and it will make your ammonium sulfate. So this is how you can see in this reaction, the proteinous matter or the amino acids or nitrogenous matter is also converted into ammonium sulfate by sulfuric acid. So everything, all kind of nitrogen is converted into ammonium sulfate. Any problem in the reactions? Now, during distillation, you see, you need to evaporate or volatilize or distillate ammonia. So here you have added sodium hydroxide. If you remember, it was 40% sodium hydroxide, and it will release ammonia. It will also form sodium sulfate and water, and it will release ammonia. And this ammonia will be released and collected in the boric acid. So this ammonia, while passing through the tubes, while it is reaching the boric acid, it takes water and ammonium hydroxide is formed. Then ammonium hydroxide enters the boric acid and it makes ammonium borate in the boric acid. And now your ammonia is collected completely. Now you are going for titration with standard acid. This is 0.1 normal sulfuric acid. Now you have ammonium borate in the boric acid, mixed indicator, and sulfuric acid you are using as a titrant for titration. So again, ammonium sulfate is formed and boric acid is released and water. So now you see the color change. It is blue-green to pink-red. When ammonia is there in the boric acid, it gives you bluish-green. And when it is neutralized by acid, it again comes back to the original color. So this is how your reactions happens, chemical reactions happen. Now, some discussions, point of discussion. So role of nitrogen in plant, most of you understand that it is important for synthesis of chlorophyll, proteins, vitamins, etc. CN ratio in materials added, I discussed sometimes in some other courses also, role of CN ratio. And somebody will teach you this part again, carbon-nitrogen ratio, its significance, particularly when somebody will teach you organic matter. That time you will get this knowledge. Now, functions of reagent. Functions of concentrated sulfuric acid, it was used to decompose the organic matter or oxidize the organic carbon. Copper sulfate was a catalyst in oxidation of carbon by sulfuric acid. It acted just as a catalyst. Catalyst means it was necessary in that reaction, but it remained unchanged. It promoted the reaction, but it was not directly involved in the reaction. Sodium sulfate raising the boiling point of sulfuric acid. So that means it can be used to save the heat. It is used to save the heat. Salicylic acid, now you understand role of salicylic acid only in case of total nitrogen in soil. So nitrates get lost as nitrogen oxides when soil is heated with sulfuric acid. However, in the presence of sulfuric acid, without heating, salicylic acid is nitrated or holds the nitrate. Salicylic acid is used when nitrates are to be included in the Geldahl nitrogen analysis. So similarly, sodium thiosulfate only in soil, total nitrogen in soil, it reduces NO2 group on salicylic acid to NH2 group. So it reduces the nitrate into ammonium. Sodium hydroxide, distillation of ammonia from ammonium sulfate. So many times functions of the reagents are asked from the students. What function is performed by which reagent? So you need to see all these points. Suppose what was the function of boric acid? 4%. So it was used to trap the ammonia coming out of distillation. Now what is function of 0.1 normal sulfuric acid? It is for estimating ammonia trapped in boric acid. It is a standard acid solution. Now you want to work out or calculate the protein content or crude protein content in dry matter or in grain or in histo, wherever you want. So it can be calculated by multiplying total Geldahl nitrogen concentration by factor which varies with crop. So this we know that protein contains about on an average 16% nitrogen. 16% nitrogen is there, so you get factor 6.25. 6.25 into nitrogen percentage is equal to protein. But that may not be true for all the crops or all the organic material. For wheat, it is 5.7, and for corn, soybean, it is 6.25, and for rice, it is 5.95. For sorghum, it is 5.83. So depending upon nitrogen percentage in the plant material, organic material, this factor comes. Sorry, nitrogen in proteins. What is the percentage of nitrogen in proteins? Now, the serious things come now. You need to be very, very careful now, Ayan. A 0.2 gram wheat grain sample after digestion with concentrated sulfuric acid and distillation with sodium hydroxide required 3.7 ml of 0.1 normal sulfuric acid for titrating the ammonia evolved. A blank carried out required 0.2 ml of 0.1 normal H2SO4. Calculate the Geldahl nitrogen content in grain sample and estimate the protein content in the sample. So this is your question. Such kind of questions you will get in your final exam, and it is good also to do some practice. Thing is that we should learn it. Exam is secondary. First thing is learning. So in this case, you have a sample. The weight of the sample is given. The concentration of titrant is also given. The standard acid is given, which is 0.1 normal. And the quantity consumed for sample is 3.7, and for blank it is 0.2 ml. So all these information are given to you. Based upon this, you need to calculate the nitrogen percentage in the plant sample. So you see 0.2 gram is the weight of the sample, and 3.7 ml 0.1 normal required for sample and 0.2 ml for blank. This is the quantity of the standard acid solution. Now, amount of nitrogen in the sample, ml of acid used for sample, you must be remembering this formula, minus ml of acid use for blank into normality of acid 14 10 power minus 3. So now 3.7 minus 0.2 is your ml of acid used into normality. So it gives you milliequivalent into 14 equivalent weight and into 10 to the power minus 3. This many grams of nitrogen is there in 0.2 gram sample. In 0.2 gram sample, 0.049 gram of nitrogen is there. So now you can convert to percentage, very simple, S into 100 divided by sample weight in gram. So you get 2.45% nitrogen, and crude protein, the factor for wheat is 5.7. So you get 13.96 approximately. So is it clear, others? Others?
Yes, sir.
So you can see, all can see. If you have any doubt, any question in this calculation, you please ask me. So these are very basic or fundamental calculations, and if you know the reasoning or know the fundamentals, then you need not to remember also. If your concepts are clear, then you can very easily do it. Now this is example you can do. You can start doing this example. This is your practical. Now your practical starts, you do it. This is your classwork. A 5 gram soil sample digested. Now, instead of plant, I write it soil, suppose. A 5 gram soil sample digested with concentrated sulfuric acid gave out on distillation ammonia that required 2.2 ml of 0.1 normal H2SO4. A blank required 0.2 ml of 0.1 normal H2SO4. Calculate the Geldal nitrogen in soil. And further, if organic carbon content in soil is 0.56%, what will be the CN ratio? So you need to do it. So if you have pen, pencil, start doing it.
Sir, 10:1 CN ratio.
Anybody?
Sir, 10:1.
10:1 CN ratio.
10:1. Fantastic.
Is it 10:1?
Yeah. Because you will get nitrogen content about 0.056, I think, 0.056. So it is 10:1.
Yes, sir. 0.056 nitrogen.
Very good. So you enjoyed this exercise, I think, Rakesh. Have you done it?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Very good.
Yes, sir.
Today I will take name of all. Okay. So this is over. Now one more example I show you, like exercise on this. A grain and star sample of rice or any crop in study contained 1.5% nitrogen in grain and 0.2% in straw. If the grain yield was 6 ton per hectare and straw yield 6.5 ton per hectare, calculate the total Geldal nitrogen taken up by the crop. Now you need to calculate the nitrogen uptake or nitrogen removal by 1 hectare crop of wheat. You have the data on grain yield, data on straw yield, and also nitrogen percentage in them. So how to do it? Just see it. The data is given on the top. You can see 1.5% nitrogen in grain. The yield is 6 tons. So I can convert 6 ton to kilogram by multiplying by 1,000. So it will be 6,000 kilogram per hectare. Then straw contains 0.2% nitrogen. So its straw yield is 6.5 tons per hectare, which is 6,500 kilograms per hectare. Now we can calculate the total nitrogen removed or uptake. So nitrogen uptake in grain kg per hectare, grain yield into nitrogen percentage in grain. So grain yield kilogram per hectare, nitrogen percentage divided by 100. And you get 6,000 into 1.5 divided by 100. So 90 kilogram of nitrogen is removed in grain. Now nitrogen uptake in straw. So straw yield kg per hectare into nitrogen percentage in straw divided by 100. So 6,500 into 0.2 divided by 100. So you get about 13 kilogram of nitrogen removed by straw. It is very low actually. In rice straw, nitrogen content is about 0.5 to 0.6%. But it is given just 0.2%. Just it is just hypothetical example. So nitrogen percent is in rice straw is 0.5 to 0.6%. In wheat straw, it is 0.4% to 0.45%. So here, the total nitrogen removed by rice is 90 plus 13, 19 grain and 13 in straw. So 103. Now interpretation is that now you have in 1 hectare, if you want to produce 6 tons of grain, 6 tons of grain, then your whole crop is rice plus straw removes about 100 kg nitrogen. 100 kg nitrogen. So then 1,000 kilogram, 1,000 kilogram. Actually, this is underestimated data. If it is 0.4, if it is 0.4, then it will be about 26 plus 100, 90, 26 plus 90. So it will be 116, which is about 120 kg nitrogen. So on an average, to get 1 ton of grain, you need 20 kg nitrogen. 20 kg nitrogen is there in 1,000 kilograms grain. Not in grain. To produce that grain, you need to have that much of nitrogen, 20 kg nitrogen in grain plus straw. Now, this is your classwork. Now you need to do this example. Grain and straw samples of wheat had 2.2% nitrogen in grain and 0.4% in straw. If the grain yield was 5 tons per hectare and straw yield 5.8 tons per hectare, calculate the total Geldal nitrogen by the crop and also calculate the crude protein in grain, straw and total. And remember, this is crude protein yield. Crude protein yield in kilogram per hectare in grain, straw and total. Please do it. Yes, you completed?
Yes, sir.
Very good. So, those who could not do it can do it in your practical record. So this is very simple. We move to next. Now, those who could not do it, they can do it later. And if you have any problem, you can ask me later. Now, just I seek your attention. Now, some general information about soil nitrogen. Because this is not, of course, part of this practical, but I want to share some general information related to soil nitrogen. So now you need to switch your mode from plant, now you come to the soil. So total nitrogen content in soil ranges from 0.02 to 0.5%. These are mean values, average values. In organic soils, total nitrogen content may be more than 2.5%. Total nitrogen content decreases with soil depth. As you go deep, the total nitrogen content decreases. It is because it is directly related to organic matter. As you go deep into the soil, organic matter decreases. More than 95% of total nitrogen in surface soils is organic nitrogen. Only 5% or less is your inorganic nitrogen. These are average values. The stable soil organic matter contains 5% nitrogen. So on an average, if somebody asks me what is the percentage of nitrogen in organic matter, so it is 5% average. And organic matter also contains 50 to 58% carbon. This is stable organic matter in soil, contains 50 to 58% of carbon. So therefore, the CN ratio in soil is 10 to 12 is to 1. It ranges from 10 to 12 is to 1. Generally, nitrogen mineralization occurs with residue nitrogen content more than 2% under aerobic conditions. So on an average, whatever nitrogen is there in the organic matter, 2%, more than 2% or about 2 to 3% is released or is mineralized in 1 year. In 1 year. Then now some general information, very important information, because you have two kind of nitrogen. One is total nitrogen is equal to inorganic nitrogen plus organic nitrogen. Inorganic nitrogen or mineral nitrogen is comprised of ammonical nitrogen, nitrite, and nitrate. This nitrite nitrogen is in traces. It is in traces. It is negligible. Nitrite is negligible in soil. It does not contribute directly for plant uptake. It is rather poisonous. If nitrite of nitrogen is accumulated in the soil, it is poisonous to the living organism. It is poisonous to the plants also. Therefore, nature has made it very unstable. Once you get nitrite, immediately within seconds, it is converted into nitrate. So in soils, nitrite nitrogen is not in large amounts. They are in very negligible amount or in traces. It is mostly ammonical nitrogen and nitrate nitrogen which makes your mineral nitrogen. So mineral nitrogen plus organic nitrogen. Now comes the available nitrogen. Nitrogen which can be made available to the plant during the growing season. That is your available nitrogen. It is made up of two parts. One is mineral nitrogen, other is readily oxidizable nitrogen or mineralizable nitrogen. Means part of the organic matter that can be mineralized or part of the organic nitrogen that can be mineralized or that can be readily oxidized is also added to the mineral nitrogen to get available nitrogen. So available nitrogen is equal to mineral nitrogen plus readily oxidizable or mineralizable nitrogen in organic forms. So now you can see if nitrogen content in surface soil is 0.1% and someone asks me what is the total nitrogen content in the soil. So in this case, total nitrogen in soil kg per hectare. So you know the weight of the soil, it is 2.2 into 10 to the power 6. But here for convenience, I am writing 2 into 10 to the power 6. 2 into 10 to the power 6 means weight of 0 to 15 centimeter soil into 0.1%. So if it is in percentage, then you need to divide 0.1 by 100. It is simple mathematics. So now you get 2000 kilogram per hectare of the total nitrogen in soil. Now, sorry, total organic nitrogen. This is total organic nitrogen. Sorry, this is total nitrogen. Because 0.1% is your nitrogen content. This is total nitrogen. Now, inorganic nitrogen is ammonium plus nitrite plus nitrate, and it represents very small fraction, 2 to 5% of the total nitrogen. If total nitrogen in soil is 2000 kilogram per hectare, and inorganic nitrogen, say 4%. If I take average value 4%, because range is 2 to 5%, then inorganic or mineral nitrogen will be 2000 into 4 divided by 100. So it will be 80 kg nitrogen per hectare. This is your inorganic nitrogen. Now, potentially available or mineralizable or readily oxidizable. Mineral nitrogen plus readily oxidizable form of organic nitrogen, mineralizable organic nitrogen. So this is potentially available or available nitrogen. So 1 to 3% of total nitrogen to be potentially released from tropical and humid subtropical soils in a year. So in 1 year, you can get 1 to 3% of the organic nitrogen released. So considering 3% release rate, just consider 3% release rate per year. So 2000 into 3 divided by 100. So it will contribute about 60 kg nitrogen. This organic nitrogen in 1 year will contribute about 60 kg nitrogen, inorganic nitrogen. So if you make the total of these two, 80 plus 60, it is your available nitrogen. So it comes out to be 140 kg. So any doubt or any comment on this? Feel free if you have any comment or any doubt about this information.
Sir, why we are including that potentially released nitrogen?
Because actually what happens when we give fertilizer recommendation, when we give nutrient recommendation, we also assume that this much of nitrogen will be made available to the crop. So we need to reduce the doses of the fertilizer or doses of the external application of nutrient, because otherwise we will apply nutrients in excess and we will not be using the nitrogen which is there in the soil. Otherwise, if we apply in excess, you will get more losses of nitrogen. So to get the best or efficient use of nitrogen, we calculate this readily oxidizable nitrogen. Even when you take potassium permanganate method, potassium permanganate method gives you available nitrogen. So that available nitrogen includes your mineral nitrogen plus readily oxidizable nitrogen. That also includes readily oxidizable nitrogen. So it is just to give you make the efficient use of the nutrients. Otherwise, what the nutrient will be doing in organic matter in the soil. We want contribution of organic matter towards the nutrient. So we need to account it actually.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Yeah, Pranab Sahu.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, is it clear?
Yes, sir. Clear, sir.
Okay. Now, calculation of today I'm getting late for the break, but don't worry, just 5-10 minutes. Calculation of nitrogen mineralization. Now, these calculations are important and numerical part. Actually, these kind of calculations are normally not there in the book. We need to derive, we need to develop for teaching purpose, taking some hypothetical examples. So now This is one numerical. You can see kg per hectare nitrogen mineralized. How to calculate it? So it is, you need to remember this formula. This is very important formula. If you want to calculate the kilograms of nitrogen per hectare mineralized, 15 centimeter depth of the soil is given. So what you need to do to calculate it, weight of the soil in kg per hectare, 2 into 10 to the power 6, and then a percentage soil organic matter. You need to have the data, what percentage of organic matter is there in my soil. Next is percentage nitrogen in soil organic matter. So this is 5%. Percentage soil organic matter mineralized. What proportion of organic matter can be mineralized? If you multiply these four things, you will get the kg per hectare nitrogen mineralized. If you multiply the first two terms means weight of soil into percentage soil organic matter. You can get the quantity of soil organic matter. And if you also know the quantity of carbon, you can calculate per hectare carbon also, because you know relationship between soil organic matter and soil organic carbon. 2.724, I think, is the factor. So you can work out carbon per hectare, kg carbon per hectare, or ton carbon per hectare from this formula, or organic matter. Then also your percentage nitrogen in soil organic matter. So up to now, up to third term, you will get the nitrogen also, organic nitrogen. What quantity of nitrogen is there? If you use the first three terms, you will calculate the kg nitrogen per hectare, organic nitrogen in kg per hectare. And then if you multiply the fourth term, percentage SOM mineralized by 100, so you will get the quantity of nitrogen that will be made available in 1 year in the soil, in the mineral form. So this formula is very, very important. And depending upon the requirement, you can use this formula. So here you want to work out the kg per hectare nitrogen mineralized. So now you see weight of the soil. You know 2.2 or 2, just take 2 into 10 to the power 6. And percentage soil organic matter ranges from 0 to 75% or more than 75% in organic soils. However, normally in our mineral soil, it ranges from 0.5 to 5%. So you need to know exactly what is the quantity of soil organic matter in your soil. And then amount of nitrogen in soil organic matter. So if it is given by somebody, okay. But if this quantity is not given, then you must assume it is 5%. 5% nitrogen in soil organic matter. Now next is that the quantity of soil organic matter that can be mineralized will depend upon several factors. I think you understand. The rate of mineralization will be governed by the moisture percent in the soil, by the CN ratio of the material, by the temperature, and by the texture of the soil. So many factors will affect the rate of mineralization, rate of decomposition of organic matter, or conversion of organic nitrogen into organic nitrogen. Mineralization will affect by climate factor, soil factor, many factors affect it. But this is the average value. Average value, if you have uh, fine soils, fine texture soils, then suppose it is 2%. But if you have coarse texture soil, in coarse texture soil, it will be 3.5%. Similarly, moisture, if you have dry conditions, so the rate will be very low. If you have more moisture, then the contribution will be more. That is why under dryland conditions, many times if moisture deficit is there, organic manures are not recommended. Only organic manures are not recommended. So several factors will affect the mineralization of organic matter. Now, this is a demo or kind of numerical. You can see, calculate the amount of nitrogen that could potentially be mineralized in soil on the basis of following information. Weight of soil, 2 into 10 to the power 6 kg per hectare. Soil organic matter percentage in soil is 2.5. Organic matter is 5. And percentage country? Answer is nitrogen mineralized in 50 centimeter depth, weight of soil into soil organic matter percentage nitrogen soil organic matter and percentage soil organic matter mineralized. You get 60 kg. So it is very your for you. You can try it now. Calculate amount of nitrogen that could be placed in soil. Give their break. Any question asked me, and I just want to share one of Dr. Rajendra Prasad. You can see, have a look on his face. Teacher in Indian Agricultural Research Institute, and was very famous, and he's the person behind NEEM, the country. He nitrogen determined hard is potassium permanganate method, and other is calcium hydroxide is also used. Know the available nitrogen is given by him in 1966. So he was a good teacher. Years and in USA for many years, I think for last 8 years. With my respect to Dr. Rajendra Prasad, and on the other side, Dr. Y.S. Shive. This was the team of soil fertility course long back. We used to teach this soil fertility and nutrient management course in this department. Thank you very much, and meet you after 5 minutes. Follow me. Can
Thank you,
stop
sir.
the record? Yeah.